My friends, we have been learning about a new habitat. Can you say habitat? What is the name of this habitat that you see in this picture? Pond. Good job. Have you ever been to the pond before? What do you think ponds are like? What can we do at a pond? Or what could we see? What plants or animals can you find at the pond? Let's see what plants and animals we might find at the pond. We see ducks diving under the water. There's the muskrat. What is this frog? What is the toad doing? Croaking. Turtles. There's our monarch butterfly. There's more insects. There's the dragonfly. We just saw animals and plants from the pond habitat. Remember, this is our pond. The water is very shallow. That means it's not very deep. And we see that the pond is here, but there's water all around it. There are plants and animals that live in and around the pond. Some animals live in the pond water, and some animals live on the edge around the pond. What are the animals' three basic needs? What do animals need? Food, water, and shelter. We've been learning about lots of different animals, friends, and they all live in the pond. We also learned about how different animals meet their needs while they're in the pond habitat. Can you show me the beaver? Point to the beaver in this picture. Good job. How do the beavers get shelter in the pond habitat? Do you remember what they use their big front teeth for? Good job. They make their own shelter. They make a house after they chew down the trees and drag the branches into the pond water. And they build the beaver dams. Can you point to the blue heron? Can you point to the bird in this picture? And point to the raccoon in our picture. How does the blue heron, the bird, and the raccoon get their food. How do they get what they need to stay alive in the pond? They have to stay very still and be patient and wait for a fish to swim by, and then they catch it. What animal is this? Crayfish. Where is it in the pond habitat in this picture? Is it on the top of the water? Is it on the land around the edge of the pond? It's not on the top of the water, and it's not on the land or the grass. Where does this animal live? Good job! Under the water at the bottom of the pond. We see Tobias Turtle has on his goggles and his mouthpiece because they're under the water at the bottom. Remember, Tobias Turtle told us about the crawfish that live on the bottom of the pond, where it's really dark and murky and very hard to see. How does this crayfish find food to eat if he can't see very well? Remember, what body part does he use? Do you remember that word? Good job. They look like whiskers, but they are antennae. They use their antennas to feel around for their food. My friends, remember, animals in the pond have different ways of getting what they need. This crayfish uses his antenna to help him feel in the dark, murky water to find his food. But remember, the raccoon and the heron stand very still and wait to catch their fish. And we know that the beaver build their own house using the trees around that they chew and find. The other day, we talked about how plants meet their needs in the pond. What is the name of this plant? Water lily. This is the lily and this is the lily pad. This is the leaf. But this plant all together is a water lily. Plants need water, sun, air, and nutrients to stay alive. How does this water lily get its nutrients from the soil? Remember, it has this long stem that goes all the way down under the water to the bottom. And it goes into the soil, into the ground down here. How do you think the water lily gets its air and sunlight? They're on top of the water, so they can get all the air and sun they need. And then we see that the roots soak up water and nutrients from the bottom. All of the plants and animals in the pond habitat have needs. They each have different ways of getting the things they need to survive. They all live together in the pond, but each plant and animal has its own way of getting what it needs to survive. Remember, while we were reading, we heard the word shallow. Can you say shallow? Listen for the word shallow as I read a part of the story that we already heard before. I'm feeling warm too, so I think I will get ready to go for a swim in the shallow pond water. I wonder what I will see when I dive down underwater. My friend, shallow means not very deep. Usually, shallow water is water that you can stand up in with your head above the water. Ponds are usually shallow. You can probably stand up in a lot of ponds. Deep is the opposite of shallow. If the water is deep, you cannot stand up in it, and it goes down very far below the ground. Shallow, can you say shallow? Good job. Have you ever been to the pool before? If you go to the pool, you can stand up in the water and it doesn't go over your head. But if you go into deep parts of the pool, deep water, you might have to have your mommy or daddy put on a life jacket. When you have to put on a life jacket, that means the water might be too deep and you can't stand up. You want to stay in shallow water where you can stand up with your head above the water. Remember, ponds are usually shallow. That's because they're not very big. Some ponds are a little deeper, but most of them are shallow. My friends, say shallow. We can stand up in a pond with our head above the water.